Cascading Style Sheet, CSS, Chapter 3. What is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is a style sheet language which is said to describe the look and formatting of the human written markup language. It can used with XML, HTML and JavaScript and most websites create user interfaces for web applications and user interfaces for mobile applications. What does CSS do? You can add new looks to your old HTML documents. You can completely change the look of your website with only a few changes in CSS code. It describes the style of an HTML document. It describes how HTML elements should be displayed. Why use CSS? It is used to define styles for your web pages, including the design, layout, and variations in display for different devices and screen sizes. Solves a big problem, saves a lot of time, provide more attributes. CSS syntax. A CSS rule set contains a select around a declaration block. H1 color, blue, font size, 12px, selector, H1. It indicates the HTML element you want to style. It could be any tag like LTH1GT, etc. Declaration block, color, blue, and font size, 12px. It can contain one or more declarations separated by a semicolon. Each declaration contains a property name and value separated by a colon. Property, color and font size. It is a type of attribute of HTML element. It could be color, border, etc. Value, blue and 12px values are assigned to CSS properties. E.g value blue is assigned to color property. CSS selector used to select the content you want to style. Are the part of CSS rule set. Select HTML elements according to its ID, class, type, attribute, etc. There are several different types of selectors in CSS. CSS element selector, CSS ID selector, CSS class selector, CSS universal selector, CSS group selector. CSS element selector. The element selector selects the HTML element by name. LT, doctypmelt LTHTMLG head style P text align center, color blue, LT/style LT/head body LTPGT. This style will be applied on every paragraph. LT/PGT bit equals para1 GT metu, LT/PGT LTPGT and me, LT/PGT LT/body LT/HTMLGT. CSS ID selector selects the ID attribute of an HTML element to select a specific element. An ID is always unique within the page, so it is chosen to select a single, unique element. It is written with the hash character, hashtag, followed by the ID of the element. LT, doctypmelt LTHTMLG head style hashtag para1 text align center, color blue, LT/style LT/head body bit equals para1 GT. Hello job@point.com LT/PGT LTPGT. This paragraph will not be affected. LT/PGT LT/body LT/HTMLGT. CSS class selector. The class selector selects HTML elements with a specific class attribute. It is used with a period character followed by the class name. LT, doctypmelt LTHTMLG head style center text align center, color blue, LT/style LT/head body LTH1 class equals center. The shading is blue and center aligned. LT/H1 B class equals center. This paragraph is blue and center aligned. LT/PGT LT/body LT/HTMLGT. CSS class selector. For specific element, if I want to specify that only on a specific HTML element should be fictet, then I should as the element name with class selector.lt, doctyp at melt lthtmlg tilde head style p.center text align center, color blue, lt/style/lt/head body lth1 class equals center gt. The shading is not affected alt/h1 gt b class equals center. This paragraph is blue and center aligned. lt/pgt lt/body lt/html gt. CSS Universal Selector. The Universal Selector is used as a wildcard character. It selects all the elements on the pages. lt, doctyp at melt lthtmlg tilde head style asterisk color green, font size 20px, lt/style/lt/head body lth2gt. The shading lt/h2gt ltpgt. The style will be applied on every paragraph. lt/pgt bit equals para1 gt metu, lt/pgt ltpgt and me, lt/pgt lt/body lt/html gt. CSS Group Selector. It is used to select all the elements with the same style definitions. It is used to minimize the code. Commas are used to separate each selector in grouping. lt, doctyp at melt lthtmlg tilde head style h1 h2p text align center, color blue, lt/style/lt/head body lth1gt. hello job@point.com lt/h1gt lth2gt. hello job@point.com, in smaller font, lt/h2gt ltpgt. The CSS paragraph. lt/pgt lt/body lt/html gt. How to add CSS. There are three ways to insert CSS in HTML documents. Point 1. Inline CSS. 2. Internal CSS. 3. External CSS. Inline CSS. It is used to apply CSS on a single line or element. E.g. Style equals color, blue gt. hello CSS lt/pgt. Internal CSS. It is used to apply CSS on a single document or page. It can affect all the elements of the page. It is written inside the style tag within head section of html.e. style p color blue lt/style. How to add CSS. Cont. External CSS. It is used to apply CSS on multiple pages or all pages. Here, we write all the CSS code in X file. Its extension must be .x. For example, style.css. You need to link the style.css file to your HTML pages like this. Link rel equals style sheet type equals text/css ref equals style.css gt. The link tag must be used inside head section of HTML. CSS comments. CSS comments are generally written to explain your code. Comments are ignored by browsers. Comments are single or multiple line statement and written within //.lthtmlg tilde head style p color blue, / the size a single line comment / text align center, / this is a multi-line comment / lt / style lt / head body ltpgt. hello job@point.com lt/pgt ltpgt. This statement is styled with css.lt/pgt ltpgt. CSS comment is rendered by the browsers and not shown in the output. lt/pgt lt/body lt/html gt. CSS background. It is used to define the background effects on element. There are 5 CSS background properties that affects the HTML elements: background color, background image, background repeat, background attachment, background position. CSS border. The CSS border is a shorthand property used to set the border on an element. They are used to specify the style, color, and size of the border of an element. The CSS border properties are border style, border color, border width, border radius. CSS display. CSS display is the most important property of CSS, which is used to control the layout of the element. It specifies how the element is displayed. Every element has a default display value according to its nature. Every element on the web page is a rectangular box, and the CSS property defines the behavior of that rectangular box. Syntax: display value. CSS display values. There are following CSS display values which are commonly used: display, inline, display, inline block, display, block, display, run-in, display, none. CSS opacity. The CSS opacity property is used to specify the transparency of an element. In simple word, you can say that it specifies the clarity of the image. In technical terms, opacity is defined as degree in which light is allowed to travel through an object. CSS overflow. The overflow property specifies whether to clip contenter to scroll bars when the contento fein lamentis to big to fight na specified area. The overflow property has the following values: visible dash default. The overflow is not clipped, it renders outside the elements box, hidden dash. The overflow is clipped and the rest of the content will be invisible. Scroll dash. The overflow is clipped buta scroll baris adeto see the rest of the content auto dash. If overflow is clipped a scroll bar shoot bit deto see the rest of the content. CSS padding. It is used to define the space between the element content and the element border. It is different from CSS margin in the way that CSS margin defines the space around elements. CSS has properties for specifying the padding for each side of an element: padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. All the padding properties can have the following values: length specifies a padding in px, pt, cm, etc. Percent specifies a padding in percent of the width of the containing element. Inherit specifies that the padding should be inherited from the parent element. CSS position. The CSS position property is used to set position for an element. It is also used to place an element behind another and also useful for scripted animation effect. You can position an element using the top, bottom, left and right properties. These properties can be used only after position property is set first. There are 5 different position values: static, relative, fixed, absolute, sticky. CSS layout. CSS layout is easy to design. We can use CSS layout to design our web page, such as home page, contact us, about us, etc. There are 3 ways to design layout of a web page: HTML div with CSS, fast and widely used now; HTML table, slow and less preferred; HTML frame set, deprecated now. A CSS layout can have header, footer, left pane, right pane, and body part.